Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network, broadcasting live here from the East Coast of the United States on Long Island. It's a beautiful day here, although slightly chilly. And as always, I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, which I will in a moment. As you know, I founded the Sales Pro Network to be a place where we can elevate the profession of sales, where salespeople can come and express their challenges and their excitement and their wins, to get coaching from incredible trainers and coaches like today's guests. And as you know, some of you know, I've invited even my competitors are here because they're great people who really know what they're talking about. And it's just a place that we can have a great time together and all make more money and truly elevate the profession of sales. Today's guest is somebody who is from the Sandler sales training system. We've had previous guests, as far as I'm concerned, some of our best guests were previous Sandler trainers, Rob Fishman and Rich Isaac. And I was introduced to today's guest by a dear friend's sister, who is also a friend of mine. And we just had a lovely chat. And I said, yeah, I want you on my show. This is great. So it's truly my pleasure to introduce you to Karen Meracle. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank
How are
you
you
for
doing
having
today?
me. Very good. And it's daunting to live up to your previous Sandler training guests of Rob Fishman and Rich Isaac, who are out there on Long Island with you. I am in our Chicago location. And to a fellow sales development person, there is so much business to go around. It just makes sense for us to all put our heads together and work together to be the best we can for our clients. So thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, truly. And well, two things. One is I grew up in Chicago, and I always love when a client brings me back to Chicago for one particular reason. Because when they say, let me take you out to dinner, it's like, oh, thank God, can we please go get a hot dog? Which always shocks them. But you can't get a great hot dog anywhere but Chicago if you grew up there. And it's just fantastic. And the other thing is, I'm kind of peeling back the curtain here. After Rob Fishman uh, was a guest, I was so blown away by him that I sent him an email and I said, if you ever use this in marketing materials, I will shoot you. But if I was looking for sales training, I'd want to take it from you, my friend. You are just unbelievably awesome.
He's
So
fantastic.
we're already getting a bunch of people who say it hello, and I can't see everybody, but good morning, Brent Barth, and good morning, Keith Ginsburg, who says Sandler rocks. Good morning, John Harmon.
Woo.
And I already missed a few, but good morning to everyone. And I'm going to dive right in. Could you just give us a brief background? What did you do before you became a Sandler trainer, and what brought you to the sales training game?
All right. Thanks, Jeff. 7 years now I've been with Sandler as a trainer and coach. And actually, I was a client of Sandler for 3 years before that. And my background was in IT services. So I was in IT services for 23 years, started right out of school, worked my way up from, working on the customer service desk to managing on the service side of the business to inside sales to outside sales to sales manager. That's what most companies do with one of their top salespeople is they turn them into a sales manager. And so that was about 13 years ago. I moved into the management role. And that's when I realized that the skill set for being a sales manager is very different than the skill set for being a salesperson. And, I couldn't just say, hey, follow me and do what I do, because that doesn't work. And so that's when I got introduced to Sandler. And as you've met other people in Sandler, you know that we do a lot of our work is actually with the sales leaders and the sales managers, and then of course the salespeople as well. And so that's how I got introduced to Sandler. And I took to it right away. I got introduced to Sandler at 40 years old. I had been selling for like 17 years without having any kind of a selling system. And, at some point, having a system can just really up your game. And that was what I learned. And so I was a raving fan. In those 3 years, our IT company doubled in size and in the profitability, even more than that. And then we sold our company. I had a small piece of that company. And so then I was able to look at, okay, what do I want to do in my next chapter? And since I was such a Sandler groupie for those 3 years, if they had something going, I was there. Some of you people familiar with Sandler maybe feel the same. And so they knocked on my door, and here I am.
Wow. Well, the first thing is I was doing some quick math, and I'm like, "What did you start right out of the womb?" But okay, you gave away a.
How sweet are you?
I'm a salesperson, right? But
Right.
the thing that I find that you said that was not just fascinating, but right on the money is I find the same thing that uh, almost any time I work with a large organization that has a sales management structure, often I'm working with small to medium sized businesses, and the salespeople are reporting directly to the owner of a company. But when you're working with, a Cisco or a Siemens or an Aramark or a Citibank, companies I've worked with, they have a strong sales management structure. And I find two things are true in almost every organization, not every, but almost every organization I've ever gone into. The first challenge is their salespeople are simply not seeing enough prospects. And I want to talk about that later on. But the other thing I find is that exactly what you said. They take their top salespeople and they do two things. One is they now lose a top producer, and two is they make them into a manager, but they don't train them how to be a manager. And you just said it, sales and sales management are two almost completely opposite things. And to me, the only salesperson that does well without a really effective sales leader, and I'm not talking about a screaming, hollering boss, that's the old days. I'm talking about somebody who really understands how to support and empower salespeople, train and coach, all the things that I know you do. The only person who does well in a sales organization without that kind of leadership is a superstar. And most salespeople simply are not superstars. I think most have the capability. Some people are never going to be a superstar. They're just what I call a plotter. But most salespeople could really become fantastic at selling if they've got certain traits and are willing to put in the work, but they just don't take the time. And without that effective sales leader, they're kind of screwed. Would you have any advice for a salesperson who is working in one of those organizations where their sales manager kind of doesn't know what they're doing?
Yeah, and it's not uncommon. And most companies, as you say, they promote people into sales management with really no, I like to use the word playbook, and people are always, they think it's like some magical concept of having a playbook, but really just like a football team would map out plays for a game and review tape from the game before, and review their competitors' tapes and this type of thing. We all have this, the ability to do this type of preparation of having our own playbook for sales. And so companies that are more advanced and working on things like, the new buzzword is sales enablement, which is really just putting playbooks out there. And they'll work on playbooks for the salespeople, but they really don't give any kind of a playbook to the sales manager. So they promote a sales manager, and they're basically like, make sure everybody's got to hit these numbers now. You're responsible, but they don't give them any instructions on how to do that. So, for the first part of it, if you're a if you're a top producing salesperson and maybe you're looking at your manager going, what can this person do for me? I don't want to be babysat by this person. This person isn't bringing me any value. I would say start from the standpoint of the understanding that this person may not have ever had any training on how to do what they're doing. And it is a very different skill set. And even if they don't have a great playbook for being a manager, I do still think that accountability can be your friend. So if that manager can be a source of accountability for you, that accountability will help you so much. So rather than fight the accountability, embrace the accountability, because it's not about that manager, it's about you, right? You don't wake up in the morning thinking about how to make your manager successful or even how to make your company successful, unless it's your own company, right? You wake up in the morning for how to meet your own goals and the goals of your family and your future. So, how can that sales manager help you, right? In a sense, they really work for you, right?
Exactly
You're not
right.
saying that, but they work for you. How can they help you? And then how can you be a little understanding of them, of the position they're in? How can you help make their life easier? And then in turn, they may make your life easier.
I really like what you just said about accountability. I'll come back to that in a second. But Ellen Lefkowitz says, a bad sales manager, they weaken the sales force to a great extent, sometimes to an irreversible level. And it's tough for a sales force to come back from weak management. And our friend Amy Wells says, Karen!
Hi, Amy.
I think that accountability piece is crucial that you just touched on. The thing that most salespeople seem to have in their minds is, I don't want to be micromanaged. In my opinion, The truth is most salespeople actually need to be micromanaged, but they can't feel like they're being micromanaged. And a smart manager will empower them and will use numbers and metrics and accountability to help them do what they need to do. And I'm with you 1,000,000%. The smart salesperson who actually realizes their manager may not know what they're talking about should be seeking them out and asking for their help, asking for somebody to hold them accountable. My belief is that most people, not everybody, most people have integrity, and they'll work very hard to keep their word to other people. But we often break our promises to ourselves. So if I make a promise to you, I'd rather break my arm than break my promise. Maybe not physically, but it's pretty close to that, because after my kids and my dog, my integrity is the most important thing in the world to me. And it may be more important than the kids, not the dog, but it's very important to me.
Right.
So if I make a promise to you, I'm going to work incredibly hard to not break it. Whereas if I make a promise to myself, it's like, I love me, I might give myself a break. And if only for the accountability piece, that's almost enough for a manager to truly be helping people. The other thing I think the smart manager will do is invest in themselves. And the same thing for smart salespeople. I was very fortunate that I worked for Encyclopedia Britannica, and they saw something in me that I did not see, and they made me a manager fairly quickly in my career there. But they had an in-house training program for managers. And over the years of being a sales manager, I would go to seminars. I'd invest my own money or go to my boss and say, hey, I want to do this to learn how to be a better manager. Because any salesperson or sales manager that's not investing in themselves, I think is wasting their time. Things are constantly changing. And even if they don't change, there's always somebody else who knows something that you don't know. You might say something today, even though I've been doing this a long time, where I go, never thought of that. Thank goodness. What a miracle that I was talking to Karen today. I love your last name. It makes me crazy. I had a million jokes in my mind before we got on for Meracle. Hi, Lady Markowitz. Let me get to some of these other questions. I was curious about something. Do you still personally enjoy selling? I know that you're on the other side of the table. You're actually working with salespeople, but do you personally enjoy selling, or do you like working with salespeople better? And if you still enjoy selling, what is it about that you like?
Yeah, that is one thing. I'm sure the same in your business, Jeff. Everybody you'll meet that's in Sandler, we sell, right? We bring in our own business, and we train and coach the people that we've sold to. So, it's full circle. So anything I'm training my clients to do, I did it this morning, right? I mean, it is an ongoing thing, and I do still really enjoy it, especially. Obviously the more I hone my skill in Sandler, and, Sandler being a very, low pressure way of, very consultative way of selling, it does make it not, I'm not working as hard at selling as I did before I had a system. So it is more enjoyable. I'm not, I'm not feeling like I'm being a pest. I'm not feeling like I have to push people and pressure people. I really just look at it as consultative. And I do really enjoy it. I really love digging in and figuring out with people if our solution makes sense for them or not. If it doesn't, let's figure that out quickly. If it does, let's figure out what you're trying to accomplish, so I can help you figure out what this would need to look like, and we can map it out and we can get going, right? It's one or the other. How fast can we figure one or the other out?
Yeah, I love that concept. I think many times salespeople are a little too slow on the uptake, especially when people are telling them no. We tend as salespeople to be optimists, and I think we have to be, because for most of us, we close less than more people say no to us than say yes.
Sure.
You and I are pretty darn good at selling. I don't know about you, but I don't close more than 50% of the people.
No, I don't either. I don't either. No.
That would be lovely. It's just not the way it works out. So in order for the typical salesperson,
I'd say you're not meeting with enough people.
Well,
if you have that kind of close rate, you may not be meeting with enough people.
I always love when I'm in front of an audience, and somebody will raise their, oh yeah, I close 90%. Really? Well, you should come up to the front of the room then, because I don't. Please teach me your methodology. And nobody's ever been able to really show me yet, metrics where they close 90%. But
right.
We've got to be really good at not wasting time, and the optimism that allows us to, beat our head against the wall every single day, knowing that more people are going to say no than yes, also blinds us when people are saying no. And as you know, people say no in a lot of ways other than, no, I'm not going to do business with Jeff Goldberg, or no, I'm not going to do business with you, Karen. I don't want to do business with Sandler. They'll do things like they stop returning your phone calls, or they stop returning your emails, or instead of setting a next meeting that's like, yeah, call me next quarter. All those things mean no, at least for now. It may not mean no forever, but we have to be really good at recognizing when a prospect is just not right for us right now, or we're not right for them, or they're just not ready. And that brings us to the point where that's the second problem that I told you about when in almost every organization. People are simply not speaking to enough prospects. Now, I want to get in a moment your feelings about prospecting today, but I can tell you for me, again, I'm going to pull back the curtain. I hate prospecting. I still enjoy selling. I'm in sales almost 48 years. I love every time I go on a sales call, whether it's via Zoom or face-to-face. I love meeting people. I love having chats and getting to know people. I truly, I'm wired up that I love helping people. Don't get me wrong. I love getting paid for helping people, but I love helping people. And I kind of enjoy the game, is this the one that's going to say yes? Is this the one that's going to say yes? But if we're not speaking with enough people, we're not giving ourselves enough chances to hear the no's, which some of which will be yeses. So any thoughts on, given today's environment, what are some of the prospecting methods that are working well? And also, I know that I know you work on both the skills and the strategies as well as the mindset. And I know you're very big on self-limiting beliefs. And, I think a lot of salespeople have that self-limiting belief about, if I cold call people, they're going to think I'm a pest. So I just gave you a lot to talk about. Could you speak about prospecting and self-limiting beliefs and anything else that comes to mind? Because I think we all need to see more prospects.
Yeah, I think you're right. And and it really does all start from mindset. So, even the mindset of, I need more prospects, can lead you into some feeling of desperation in the way that you're going about it. And then sometimes the mindset will lead to it not working, right? Because the prospects, they can feel your desperation in the way that you make a call. They can feel if you're kind of eye-centered, like you just want to talk about what you could do for them and how it could help them and what you've done for others like them. And as soon as they sense that kind of desperation in your approach, they back away. And the more the prospect backs away, the more we kind of go into a chase and convince mode, which really doesn't work. And in Sandler, they call it Pendulum Theory. And I've got my whiteboard here, but if you think of someone's interest in working with you as like a pendulum swinging across the bottom of a clock face, where when it swings to 3 o'clock, they're signing up with you. They're a client, and when it swings to 9 o'clock, it's over. Okay, so fair to say anyone's interest in working with you, if they're not a client and if they're not at go away, is somewhere between 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Right. So when we first contact somebody, if this is neutral, 6 o'clock, anyone when you first contact them, they're basically at neutral, no interest, right? And now, they don't know who you are necessarily, or really have any opinion. You contact them, whether it's a cold call or a LinkedIn note or an email, and we certainly have techniques for all of these things, as I'm sure you do too, Jeff. And I do think it's a multi-prong approach, right? Don't just try one thing. I see people have to try like 8 different things, and the way they're switching it up and the type of messaging. But anytime somebody gets that first, gets that approach from you, whatever it is, they are now moving off of 6 o'clock because they can't be neutral anymore. They got to move one way or the other. The pendulum is going to start to swing. So depending on your approach, it might swing towards the negative, or it could swing towards the positive. Right, so the pendulum theory in Sandler teaches this: stay left of pendulum in your level of enthusiasm, optimism, assuming they need what you do. We're always just a little bit to the left of where they are, right? So instead of the approach being, and I'll be exaggerated here, but wow, Jeff, do I have a solution for you? You would not believe what we have done for other people exactly like you, and I am sure you are having these issues, and if we could get some time together, I'd love to show you what we could do for you. So I call you with that approach. You were at 6 o'clock. Now which way do you start to swing based on my approach?
I'm probably going towards 9. I'm stopping myself from gagging and vomiting right now.
Okay, you start swinging this way. So what do you say? What's something you might say when I call with that approach?
I'm not interested.
Okay. What do most salespeople do? They go this way. Okay. Well, Jeff,
how could you not be interested?
If I could just give you
to talk.
Yeah, if I just give you a couple more minutes before you go, I really think, hey, Jeff, how about I send you some information? And, and I'll send you a link to our website, and we've got this seminar coming up. So you're like up here, like a cheerleader. Hello, come this way, come look this way. And this person's just going this way, right? And I'm sure your people in New York, they're very quick to go, goodbye, get the hell out of here, right? Where the people in Chicago are probably a little bit like, okay, sure, send me something. And then they ignore you, right? They're a little nicer, but they still ignore you, right? So how do we get left of pendulum, left of where they are? So that person's going, yeah, I don't think I'm interested. I think I'm all set. How do we start it differently? How might I start it with something like, hey, Jeff, I'm not sure if it's even going to make sense for us to talk. Can I just briefly tell you why I reached out to you specifically? Then you tell me if it makes sense for us to keep talking. Would that be fair? Okay, we call that in Sandler, we call it an upfront contract, right? Telling someone upfront what's about to happen and getting them to agree. And then I would throw out what we call in Sandler, and I'm sure you have a similar term for it, your 30-second commercial, your elevator pitch. The key with the elevator pitch is it's pain-based rather than feature-based, right? So whether this is in a phone call or a LinkedIn or an email, it's pain-based, right? So I'm saying, so Jeff, other business owners, I'm not sure if these are issues for you. I'm going left to pendulum with that statement. Not sure if these are issues for you. Other business owners, they typically reach out to us when they've found that they're struggling achieving the kind of business growth that they've been looking to achieve. And they've got a good team. They're working really hard. They've got a lot of great things in place, but there's something's not coming together. They've got pipeline full of people not making decisions, and they feel like they have to discount to win business these days. But I don't want to presume, Jeff. Any of these issues for you? Anything worth a couple-minute conversation?
Yeah, that's what I call permission-based prospecting. It's better for everybody. You use the word before, the I or the me. We tend to make it all about us when everything that we do when we're selling is really all about them. The prospect has the ability to say yes or no to giving us the appointment, and yes or no to whether they want to do business with us and hand over some money. And for us to make it all about I in our emails and our phone calls and every interaction, the prospect doesn't care about us. Even, and I'm sure you have the same experience, even the clients that I work with for years and years, and some become friends, I know that at the end of the day, they would prefer it if I paid them to let me train their team rather than they pay me, because they don't care that I've got 3 kids in college and an ex-wife who needs to get paid every month and my dog needs to go to the vet and all. They don't care about us. Of course they do in a way, but they care about them and their issues and their problems. So what your methodology, I don't know if you're experiencing this, but a lot of my clients are telling me that their salespeople are pretty good at selling, but they're just not good at getting appointments. Is that an issue for you? It's one of those things that almost everybody can relate to, and it's hard for them to say, no, we don't have a problem with that. And now you're involved in a genuine conversation. Is that kind of where you're going with this?
Yeah, and it starts from the mindset of, I don't presume that the people have these issues. I know other people have these issues. So, anyone who's listening in on this, put this in your world. What are the pain points that your product or solution solves for other people? And you're really just putting those out there. I don't know if these are issues for you. Other owners, other CFOs, other marketing directors, whoever your call point is, they come to us when they have issues with this, and they're frustrated with that, and they're concerned about that. And any of these issues for you, anything worth talking about? All right, so that's 30-second commercial. Even with the awesome, pain-based, very consultative 30-second commercial, people are still skeptical of salespeople. All of the bad salespeople who have come before us have laid the groundwork for their skepticism and then protecting themselves. So even then, they still may go a little negative here on the pendulum. And they might say, yeah, actually, I think we're pretty good with all that. I don't know. So they'll still, and you'll be surprised. Oh, how can they not? But what do you do? Right? You could be surprised, but okay, what they're getting off the phone, or they're going this way. Again, you jump over here. Well, let me send you some stuff. Let me get, let's set up some more time. But instead, how do you go left to pendulum? How do you stick right with their negativity? Everyone knows mirroring and matching. You're almost mirroring and matching their doubt that they need to talk with you. So instead of going to be a cheerleader, you're going, hey, I appreciate you sharing that, Jeff. It sounds like you guys are pretty strong in a lot of those areas. Doesn't sound like it makes sense for us to talk. Before I let you go, can I ask you something? And then what's your one more thing question? Those of you old enough to remember who Columbo was, David Sandler, who passed away in '95, he used to talk about Columbo. And Jeff, I don't want to presume you're old enough to remember Columbo.
Oh, I talk about Columbo all the time. There's just one more thing.
There's one more thing. Yeah, and so you got to have a one more thing, right? And in my world, I like the question. With the plans you guys have coming for growth over the next few years, I don't suppose you could even imagine a reason it might make sense for us to talk, in the future. And because I'm just trying to get a conversation at this point, because then sometimes once you take the pressure off that you're not trying to get them to agree to an appointment right then they might go, well, we are thinking about hiring some people next year, or they start to open up. And now you're just in a conversation. And then, so what happens as soon as they say that? They're starting to move this way. They've got a little bit of interest, it's like a fish starting to bite at the hook a little bit. They're moving this way. What do most salespeople do when they start moving this way? They jump up here. Well, I could, why don't we set up a call for Monday, and I'll get my technical person on the phone. We'll do a demo for you. You get too excited, like the person who tries to catch the fish. You jump up here. No, stay with them right where they are, right? So it doesn't sound like it may not make sense to talk for a little while on that. When are you thinking you might address that? You're right with them. And can you get them to the point where it makes sense? I don't know. Can I make a suggestion, Jeff? It doesn't sound like this is an immediate need for you, but my thought would be maybe we schedule 30 minutes, jump on a Zoom, like to learn a little bit more about you, learn a little bit more about me, and then we'll figure, it may not make sense to do anything right now, but we'll know a little bit more about each other if that time comes. And you're right with them, and now you got the appointment, as opposed to you push too hard, they swung this way, you're off the phone, and now you're chasing. Right, and their only memory of your approach was you pushed too hard.
Yeah, we jump to 3 o'clock when they're not ready. It's almost like from Glengarry Glen Ross, with those brilliant first 10 minutes where Alec Baldwin is the sales manager from hell. ABC, always be closing. Always be closing is one of those things that sounds right, but just isn't. I mean, you can't walk into a meeting and go, "Hi, I'm Jeff Goldberg. I'm a great sales trainer. Want to buy?" They're not ready. They don't know anything about you. The only time to close is when the prospect is ready to close, not when we are. Of course, we're always ready to, but we really have to pay attention to them. And Melinda Epstein, good morning, Melinda, says listening is important as well. And I always use the technical sales training term when I talk about listening, that most salespeople suck at listening. We're horrendous listeners. Ellen Lefkowitz had a question for you. She said, how do you feel about video prospecting? And I actually got that same question just the other day. What are your thoughts on using video to prospect?
Yeah, it's obviously it's a new thing. Maybe not new for everybody, but certainly some of these technologies like Vidyard and Loom and LinkedIn video for prospecting. And so I have a lot of clients starting to use it. We have had some people starting to have some success with it. And I think part of the because you can mirror what we've just been talking about, even in a video prospecting approach. So one of the tips is with say you're going to email somebody a video that you made just for them, is and you want them to click on your image, right? If you've seen Vidyard, right, they actually see your image. You want them to know that it's for them, not a cold email template. So I'm looking for a piece of paper that doesn't have writing all over it. So I would write, if I was trying to send a message to you, Jeff, the beginning of my video might say this, and hi Jeff or something, and then if they click on it, hey Jeff, I know you don't know me. I was doing some research on your website. Not sure if it's going to make sense for us to talk. Wondering if I can get on your calendar for a few minutes. Here's why. So, you decide the approach, but it's still left to Pendulum. And then maybe you got a couple pain points. I've seen some people doing some creative things, depending on what your business is, funny hats. On Vidyard's website, there's a guy who is trying to get into Buffalo Wild Wings. So if you Google Vidyard Buffalo Wild Wings, you should find it. It is hilarious because what the guy did was he went and bought some of the absolute hottest wings that they make, and then he made the Vidyard, and he was holding up the box of the Wild Wings, and then he's basically like, here's why I'd like to meet with you, and to prove how much I want to meet with you or want to talk with you guys, here's what I'm doing. And he was eating he was like sweating and coughing. It's hilarious.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
He got the meeting.
I was hoping you were going to hold up that little sign, because I've been on the receiving end of these, and if you just see a video with my face just sitting here, like people can see right now, who am I? But when I'm holding up a sign that says "Hi, Karen," or something clever like that, or something funny, of course, depending on what you're selling, it's incredibly creative, and I'm gonna go, okay, the guy's speaking directly to me, Karen's speaking directly to me. I gotta find out what this is about. Same thing, by the way, I think with thank you notes. I'm a big fan of handwritten thank you notes, not just an email. The great thing about email is I can leave your office or get off a Zoom call with you, and within 30 seconds, you've got a thank you note from me. But I can tell you, I don't open up every email. I simply can't. I get between 200 and 400 every single day, and I can't open them all. But if there's something creative in there that's actually going to engage me, I'm going to take a shot at that. And I open up every piece of direct mail. I still open every single piece of direct mail that comes in, because you never know what's in there. And a handwritten thank you note makes perfect sense. And it makes you feel special. It's almost like when you get an email thank you note, it's kind of like getting an email, an online happy birthday card, a birthday card. It's nice, but it's not as good as when somebody goes to Hallmark or hi, Melinda Epstein sends me a send out card saying happy birthday. It's just put in more effort.
Or the pre-printed cards where they don't even write anything. It's just got like the name of their company printed. I'm like, what is the point of that? So, Jeff, I don't know if you're familiar with the term pattern interrupt. Sandler uses the term pattern interrupt, but just the idea that we're interrupting the typical pattern. So the typical pattern when you make a cold call is the person, as soon as they realize it's a salesperson, they give you the bum rush off the phone. That's the pattern. So how do we interrupt their pattern? And that's really, the approach. So one of the pattern interrupts we use in calling is saying, Jeff, I'm guessing I caught you at a particularly bad time. And that's a pattern interrupt, because what do most salespeople do? They go, hey, Jeff, how you doing today? Right? And what do you think? As soon as you hear how you doing today,
it's either my mother, because that's the only person who asks, or a salesperson.
Right. So the pattern, once you realize the salesperson, whereas if someone says, hey, Jeff, Karen, Meracle, I'm guessing I caught you at a particularly bad time. So where's your brain go? Do I know who that is? A bad time? And a lot of times it is a bad time, right? So then they'll tell you, well, I was waiting for the call. Okay, I get it. It may not make sense for us to talk. Can I take 30 seconds to tell you why we reached out? You tell me if it makes sense for us to talk even at another time. because again, it's different. It's a pattern interrupt. So I feel the same way with Vidyard or Loom or some of these technologies right now. Anyway, it's a pattern interrupt that they're not getting a lot of these yet. You do have an opportunity right now, especially with everything going on, to get creative with these. Where I've had particularly good luck with Vidyard is in follow-ups. You mentioned earlier where basically people are ghosting you. And how do you get them back, right? The Vidyard where they see your face, you remind them of what you talked about. You give them an out, right? That's one of our rules. Give people an out and see if they take it, right? Don't push. Just give people an out. You're left a pendulum. Let them have an out, and then if they take it, well, then you can have a conversation from there. Kind of now that it's over. Now that it's over, can I ask you one more thing?
Yeah, that's great.
And then your handwritten notes, like you mentioned. Talk about a pattern interrupt, right? Actually getting something real in the mail. And I do think we have a good opportunity right now if we have people's home addresses or if they are still going to their office to mail somebody something. And, exciting. I actually got a hand addressed personal message mail sent to me. So I like that idea.
That's great. And I actually had not thought of using video to re-engage somebody who's ghosting us. I think that's brilliant. We have to remember that when we're prospecting, we're for the most part doing interruptive marketing. They're not, most people are, I would pay big money for the list of vice presidents of sales that are sitting at their desk right now thinking, I hope a sales trainer calls me today. And I hope it's Jeff Goldberg, because his company's the only one that does it well. And I know he charges too little. I pay huge money for that list. I just haven't found it yet. But I love the idea of using video to re-engage. I teach a simple, either an email or a voicemail. If it's an email, the subject line should be, should I close the file? And it's all in caps, question mark, question mark, question mark. And that's pretty much what you're saying here. Give them an out. And, the body of it's going to read something like, hey, Karen, I know we met about 2 months ago and you seemed extremely interested in what I had to offer. And after you reviewed my proposal, you seemed very interested. But I've sent you several emails and I've left you several voicemails and haven't heard back from you. I just want you to know I'm the type of salesperson who's very, very persistent, and I'm not going to stop reaching out until you tell me no, but I'm not looking to be a pest. If you're potentially interested in moving forward, please respond and give me a couple of times that would work for you, and I'll find a way to work you into my schedule and rearrange things so that we can chat. But if you're not interested, just respond with, please close the file, and I promise I will never darken your door again. So should I close the file? And the amazing thing that everybody, almost everybody I've ever taught this to reports back to me is that I'd say, I don't have an exact metric for this, and I'm very big on numbers, but about 80% of the time people respond with, no, don't close the file. We just got busy with, and then they fill in the blank with whatever the excuse is, but now you've got them re-engaged. The other thing I think is important, I'm hoping you would agree, is to try to avoid being ghosted at all costs by always setting up the next meeting or the next phone call before you leave this one. I call it the best next action step philosophy, which is simply never leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call. I certainly don't want to get done with talking to somebody and go, okay, I'll give you a call next week and we'll set something else up. Why would you do that? I think by always setting up the best next action step before you leave a meeting or before you leave a phone call, you're not 100% guaranteeing you're not going to get ghosted, but you're way more likely to keep people engaged. And to me, the more important thing is you're gauging somebody's interest. Because in my opinion, when an executive that you're trying to sell to, whatever level they are, gives you some of their valuable time and then agrees to give you more of their valuable time to continue the discussion, they're saying something to you. And what I believe they're saying is, I'm interested. They may not end up buying from you, but at least they're interested. We go back to people spend way too much time wasting it on people who are never going to do business with them. And that kind of brings us to pipeline. Can you talk a little bit about a clean sales funnel and the importance of it?
Well, we talked earlier about what sales managers are responsible for, and I would say that's one of the key things a sales manager can get better at is truly qualifying what's in their forecast. And I actually recommend what we call it a real or BS pipeline meeting. where where the salespeople really have to defend what's in their pipeline, and maybe you've got other salespeople there as well. And so, do they know the answers to all of the key qualifying questions as far as what's their decision process look like, and who's going to be involved, and have you gotten in front of those people, and what is their buying criteria, and what competition are you up against, and what's their timeline look like, and do you have a clear next step, and and all of these things, like, does this belong in the forecast, and depending on how their forecast works. Because the problem with a clogged up pipeline with a lot of people who are in think it over mode, which, as we know, when someone's in think it over mode, probably the only one thinking it over is the salesperson, and the prospect is already at a no, and you just don't know it yet, right? Is you feel like you have a pretty full pipeline. And so what do salespeople with a really full pipeline not do? Prospect.
That's right.
You gotta create pain with yourself. You got to get leverage on yourself. So for yourself, you're better to have a very honest pipeline. It doesn't mean anybody you take out of it, you're not going to call them again. They just don't belong. It's not forecastable, right? It's not that it's impossible. It's just not forecastable. At some point, you could get it to the point where it's forecastable, but for now, take it out. So you're a lean, honest, predictable pipeline is really what the manager wants, because they have to answer for a forecast that isn't accurate. But also for your sake as the salesperson, lean, honest, predictable pipeline serves you so much better than one that's clogged up with maybes.
Yeah, I love what you just said about what happens when you have a full pipeline. You tend to not prospect as much. And I always want salespeople to be confident and optimistic and positive. But when it comes to their pipeline, I want them to be terrified. Look,
you want them in pain.
One of the things I do is outsource sales management. I manage 2 companies right now, and I do pipeline reviews, and I train managers how to run a good pipeline review. And part of it is helping your salespeople to see that I understand you think you're working on 20 prospects right now, but you've got next steps with 2 of them, and 18 you don't have a next step. So what you've got 2 people in your pipeline. Because if you don't have a next step, it's at 0% right now. They might come back to 90% in a minute by getting a next appointment set up, but with no next step, it's got a 0% chance of closing. And when you've got 20 prospects on your pipeline, you're like, oh, this is all good. I'm way too busy to prospect now, boss. I got to work on these deals. But when you only see 2, it's like, oh no, how am I going to close some business? How am I going to feed my family? How am I going to keep my job? How am I going to do all the things that I need to do? I want salespeople terrified every single day that they're not speaking to enough people. Not terrified where it's crushing them, but the old expression, a hungry salesperson. Mm-hmm. If you're not hungry, then something's wrong. Look, part of the challenge is we create a problem for ourselves when we set a lot of appointments and start speaking to a lot of people. We have to deliver on that stuff. And the first thing to go tends to be prospecting, because for most of us, we just don't want to do it. We hate it. Yeah. But to me, it's the most important thing salespeople can do every single day.
Yeah. And whether you time block and again, back to accountability, right? Having, no matter how full your pipeline is, having a consistent, plan for prospecting, and whether you're doing a little bit every day or you time block off, a few sessions a week or whatever you do, get consistent. And I want to bring us back to Pendulum for a minute, just based on what you're saying about, because Pendulum, it's not just in the first call. This is all through your sales process with somebody. So this is very common, right? We have a discovery meeting with somebody. We ask a lot of good, consultative pain questions. The more we get them emotional, talking about their challenges, they move this way on the pendulum, right? They really, these are things that they want to fix. They start to trust that you could fix them for them. They're moving this way, right? Then you end the meeting. Say you do end the meeting with a clear next step. The biggest key to ending a meeting with a clear next step is telling them at the beginning of the meeting. That's the Sandler Upfront Contract. For those Sandler folks out there, Sandler Upfront Contract says at the end of the meeting, Jeff, we'll figure out together if we're going to take a next step. If there's any reason you feel that it doesn't make sense to take a next step at that point, are you comfortable telling me so? And if I don't think I can help you, I'll tell you as well. Or if we mutually decide it does make sense to keep talking, we'll get our calendars out, we'll set up our next time to talk, or we'll dig in a little deeper. So whatever it is in your world, you tell them at the beginning of the meeting. So then at the end of the meeting, you've already told them what's going to happen. You're not ending meetings with vague, well, call me in a couple weeks or I'll check back in with you. That, if that's how you're ending a meeting, don't put it in your pipeline. You just had a curiosity meeting. There's just not enough there. If there's not enough pain for a next step, okay, let's decide that. But let's say that there is. Let's say there is enough pain for them to keep talking. You do have a clear next step. But at the end of that meeting, you maybe got them up to like 4 o'clock. You guys set a clear next step. Maybe they're going to get their partner involved. You're going to bring some solutions. But what happens as soon as you either walk out their door or you end the call where they were talking about their pains? Where do they go on the pendulum?
The other way, because they've got a million other things on their desk that they've got to do, and you're not as important
right
as you were a minute ago.
Exactly, you're exactly right. So I like people to visualize, like everyone you talk to has like 50 pieces of paper on their desk that are like all the major things that they need to take care of. I'm holding papers,
and then mine right in front of me too.
for the time that you are speaking, it's like they took this piece of paper out from the middle of their pile and it's on top. And wow, are they in pain thinking about that issue, wanting to fix that issue, hope, potentially committed to setting a next step with you. But what happens as soon as you walk out the door? New paper, new paper, new paper, no paper. And now then your clear next step meeting you set is tomorrow and you get a cancellation. Something got in the way, I'm really booked up, check back with me in a couple weeks, right? What happened? They went this way, right? So what do we have to do? we have to get back in touch with them. It might take a couple of things. We go left to pendulum, we stay, and then we get them back in pain. You have to do this all through the sales process. If you have anybody in your pipeline that is ghosting you, they swung back away, either or they bought it from somebody else, or they, just but other things got in the way. How do you get them back in pain? And I think that what we talked about, Jeff, with the vidyard is, this is someone who's not engaging with you back on the phone, is you're getting on camera, hi, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, I got to assume at this point you may have solved some of those issues that we talked about related to your sales growth and some of the issues you were having with discounting, and may not make sense for us to talk, or it may just be back burner. You got a lot of other things going on. If you could let me know one way or the other, because I'm perfectly fine being as patient as you need me to be. And the last thing I wanted to be is a pest, but also the day we talked, you really were looking for help with these things. So I feel like I wouldn't be helping you if I didn't continue to follow up until you tell me not to. Right. So that, even more than an email or a voicemail, I think we could get those people who are ghosting us and get them back in pain. Because if they were really in pain and now they've let themselves slide backwards, you're not necessarily helping them by letting them off the hook. And you're up here being a cheerleader. Hey, Jeff, I'm ready to get started. I got all my resources lined up. I got a quote ready for you. That just pushes them back that way. And you're not helping them, because now they don't want to get back with you because they feel like you're going to give them a high pressure deal, and they're embarrassed that they took your time and now they don't know if they want to do it, right? We got to be, let them off the hook a little bit and be consultative with them. And then hopefully we could get those people re-engaged.
Yeah, I particularly like the gentleness of this. And I also love the way you express this. You didn't say you push them back to 3 o'clock. You say they move to 3 o'clock. And I love the distinction there, because any salesperson that thinks that they're talking anybody into anything is sorely mistaken. Look, you've got a bunch of years of sales and sales training experience. So do I. Between us, I think it's like 75, 100 years between us. I don't think either of us is good enough. And together we're not good enough to talk anybody into anything that they don't want, don't need, or can't afford. And for me, and I'm sure for you too, I'm not looking to do that. What I'm looking to do is have enough conversations with enough people so that I'm running into some of them that go, oh yeah, Jeff Goldberg, and oh yeah, Kara Meracle, this is a good match. But unless we're consistently prospecting, and unless we're really understanding that our job is not to convince, and it's not to persuade, and it's not to talk people into things, I suggest that our job as salespeople is simply to have a conversation or a series of conversations that hopefully ends with the prospect choosing to do business with us. The 48 years ago when I started, you're there to talk people into things. You got a one-call close. I mean, Encyclopedia Britannica was a one-call close. We knew that if we walked out of somebody's house, we're talking, I guess, 35, 40 years ago, we knew if we walked out of somebody's house after telling them that the books that their kids can use in the library are going to cost them $1,900 to have them in their house, we knew they weren't going to think it over and call us up the next day and go, yeah, we've thought about this. This is a great idea. They'd buy them on the spot or they wouldn't. But,
it's like the car guys. If they let people out the door, they're, what's the chance they're coming back? You got to get them to swing themselves to, and also I still think people could have a one call close if the person can swing themselves to 3:00 in one call and you stay right with them, right? And make sure they're good with it. Don't, buyer's remorse I bought a timeshare. Oh, Jeff, you'd love this story. I won't tell the whole story, but I got a free trip to Manhattan, and I had to go look at a timeshare. And of course, those guys are good at, they are like killers. Yeah, bring their manager over, throwing this in. We ended up buying the timeshare, and I don't know, $30,000 or something. And right when I was signing the paper, I looked at the legal woman who was helping me with it, and I said, "How long do I have to change my mind on this?" And the sales guy is sitting there, Sam from Manhattan. He said, "You wouldn't do that to me." So what do you think went in my head as soon as he said that?
Uh-oh. Maybe I shouldn't sign this paper.
Yeah. So I still signed it, but we had our certain number of days. We ended up canceling the whole thing. But yeah, in that meeting, I was like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff. As soon as that meeting ended and I was looking through the paperwork, my logic kicked in, right? So Sandler teaches transactional analysis, which is the study of how people operate in their parent ego state, adult ego state, or child ego state. So basically, you do all of your buying from your child ego state. Your decision to buy is from your emotions. Whether you're excited about something or whether something's really painful to you, it's your emotions that make the decision. The child makes the decision to buy it, and then the adult, your logical side, or even the parent who tells you what to do, gives you permission. So what happened in that timeshare was my child bought it, and then as soon as I left, the parent side of me was like, "What the hell did you just do?" And then the adult ego state of me was like, okay, let's look through all this paperwork. Let's look at the reviews of this, timeshare company. And anyway, so then it was like, okay, we're not buying this, right? You cannot, okay, child that wanted that trip to Italy that Sam was showing you, you cannot buy this. Then buyer's remorse, right? Yep. And the same thing happens even in business sales, where you ever get a verbal agreement from somebody, you send over the paperwork and they don't sign. Maybe I'm the only one this has ever happened to, but basically their child wanted to do it. And then as soon as they got the paperwork, then their adult kicks in, the logical side, have we considered all of our options, right? So you really have to sell to all three of those parts of the person that you're talking with. So
was that Hilton by any chance, the timeshare?
It was.
So you're going to laugh at this.
I was trying to remember if it was Hilton or Hyatt. I think it was Hilton. Yeah, it was
on 6th Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
So here's how I know.
Do you know Sam?
I don't know Sam, but I actually worked for them for 2 months.
Oh my gosh!
I was recruited. Actually, it was just before I went into the sales training business.
Right.
I had closed down. I owned a headhunting company. I was looking for my next opportunity, and I met a guy. He happened to be a recruiter for them. He goes, "Oh my God, you are going to be a superstar here. You're exactly who we need." And they put us through this training program, and you've been through it. It is high pressure. The timeshares are gorgeous. I mean, they are beautiful, and they've got great properties all over the world. But it truly was a one-call close. And the challenge that I found was, I sucked at it. I was horrible because I'm too honest, and I don't like pressuring people. But they have a guy people in the lobby calling guests over saying, hey, we'll give you 2 free tickets to a Broadway show if you'll just take our presentation, which to me is not really a qualified lead. And we would sit in a room with like 15 people in suits and ties for the most part, sitting there all day waiting for someone to show up. And there were days when we would sit there all day and not get a single presentation in. And when you actually got somebody, you were like salivating because you take them around and you show them these beautiful things, but straight commission. So yeah, I left after 2 months because I had not closed a single deal, and I saw I was wasting my time. And thank goodness I did, because I then answered a blind ad of the New York Times, which turned out to be for a large sales training company, which got me into the business, and saw that this is where I was meant to be. And that's when I opened up my own firm. We're quickly running out of time, and I wanted to ask another question. I don't know if you could just speak briefly about it. I find that discounting is the weakest form of selling, and so many salespeople, when they get any even moderate resistance, the first thing they do, maybe I can do a better on the price. Can you speak a little bit about, what can salespeople do to keep margins high, and maybe a little bit about, I know Sandler teaches negotiating mastery. Any tips on that before we end for the day?
Yeah, a 5-minute training on negotiation mastery. I love it. Yeah, I think discounting is probably the absolute laziest way to sell, and I think it starts with mindset, right? If my company could hire people who don't know anything about selling to just give discounts to sell to people, right? The reason that I'm here is to help people discover the value that we provide for the prices that, for the investment. I like to use the word investment.
Me too.
The investment that we charge. And so it really does start with mindset. And so I think you're better to go into any, negotiation with, I don't discount, but we can make changes, right? If that's possible in your world. And you're also trying to fish that out ahead of time if you think that they're the type of person who's going to want to try to hit you with a asking for a discount. Because when you go over the investment with them, I think you can say up front, I've structured this in a way that we can meet meet what you're trying to accomplish, but not in a way where I have flexibility to change the investment amount. So if we wanted to make any changes related to the investment, then we would need to talk about what we might need to change, might need to take out. That works well with people in any kind of professional services where you have some flexibility. For anybody in more commoditized or product type sales, that doesn't work as well to say, I've built this in a way that it meets your investment amount. The other thing is you're really having a budget conversation before they see your numbers in any way, shape, or form. So in the meeting, in the discovery meeting, when you're finding out what their pain is, you're quantifying what that pain is costing them or what it could cost them. So part of your consultative approach to selling is figuring out what their pains are either have cost them, are costing them, or will cost them if they don't fix them. What are the consequences of not fixing this? Only you're asking it in a way, and obviously you work on this and we work on this. How can I ask it in a way where they don't feel like I'm a salesperson trying to sell them something, but more like a consultant would ask? Like, what would the potential return on investment be for you based on what this is costing you? And then we could figure out what product or service might make sense for you. So you've had the budget conversation in advance, and then when you're reviewing the investment levels, it's based on the consequence of the pain. So the request for discounts, I don't get that a lot, but if anybody gets that a lot, I think you can strategize how to present your pricing in a way that you don't get hit with the discount request. Because yeah, anytime you discount, you're undervaluing yourself and your company, and you're setting themselves up to ask you for a discount every time. And you're basically telling them, I ripped you off with the price I gave you the first time.
I'm with you 100% on that. If I could have discounted, I would have given you that price in the first place.
Right.
By any chance, did you read the book, The Transparency Sale?
I have not read The Transparency Sale. Who wrote that, Jeff?
Todd Capone.
Okay, you know what it is? I think I saw him speak about it, and so in my mind I'm like, I know that, but I haven't read the book. So,
It's a great book. Todd's a friend. We actually worked together at the training company I worked at before I opened up my own.
okay.
It's a brilliant
Yeah, I
book, and
saw him speak and it was great.
he's fantastic. I love Todd.
Fantastic.
And
Hmm.
he talks about transparent negotiations where you actually, instead of holding your cards close to your face or close to your vest, you're actually saying, look, here's what's important to us. Tell us what's important to you. And sometimes you can see that you're really a lot closer than you think you are. Instead of making it into a battle, you really want to
Yeah.
be on the same side because, so many training systems teach that sales is war. I don't think sales is war. We either both win or we both lose. You get my product or service and I get your money, or you don't get my product or service and I don't get your money. So I think it's partly mindset and partly skill set. And I see, I'm checking the time. We've run completely out of time. I could easily have this conversation for 3 or 4 more hours. Karen, could you briefly, I'm just going to share my screen while you do this. Could you briefly tell people what types of services you offer and how they can get in touch with you if they're interested?
Sure, sure. So in Sandler training, we work with companies and individuals in working on issues related to their sales process, their sales management process. We're in Chicago, but obviously we're in a virtual world, so we're doing a lot of virtual training with individuals and companies here from our office. And everything that we've talked about today related to helping people with the mindsets, the skills, and the behaviors to help them really take their career to the next level. And I'm a big believer with companies. Don't bring me in and say, can I give you my weakest performer and see if you can fix them? Chances are that they're not going to make it. But I'm a big believer in strengthen the strong. I look at what Sandler did for our already strong IT company in doubling our revenue and profitability in 3 years to take our company to where we wanted it to be to sell it. And that's really what I like to help businesses do, right? See the blind spots that are keeping them from achieving the growth that they could be achieved. They're already strong. How do we strengthen the strong even more by bringing in some process and new mindsets and new ways of working with their sales team? So,
Got
yeah,
it. Yeah.
happy to talk with anyone.
Perfect. Everybody's just seen your email address. Would you like to give out a phone number or would you prefer email?
Phone number's good too. It's 847-791-6129. 847-791-6129.
And again, because we're living in a virtual world, you don't have to be in the Chicago area to work with Karen. You could work with somebody anywhere.
Yeah, I work with people all over the country.
And one last question: do you work only with teams, or do you work like I mostly these days am working one-on-one with coaching clients, but I work with teams too. But my focus is one-on-one. Do you work one-on-one, or is it only with teams?
I mainly work with teams. Yeah. Now sometimes they're small teams, an owner with a couple salespeople, but I typically, that's really, I think where I can bring the most value to people. Whereas people that do what you do, Jeff, with one-on-one coaching, I think do a better job with that than I do. So I would refer them back to you if they're really, as far as the way that you're structured versus the way that we're structured in Sandler's. It's more working with companies where there's a leader involved who's also helping with some of the accountability and things.
Yeah, I'm the guy who will take your weakest performer and work with them.
Yes.
Although my preference really these days, I tend to be working more with high performers. Somebody who's making 80,000 but knows they can make 100 or 100 and a quarter and got to get up to that 150. I love working with those people, and I love every time I speak with somebody from Sandler. I always think, because I'll often get it. Don't you just hate those Sandler guys? I'm like, no, I love those guys. We're really saying the same things, just using different words. And every time I speak with somebody from Sandler, I always appreciate it. Thank you so much for generously sharing your time and your knowledge and your wisdom. It's truly a pleasure. And if I can ever do anything for you, please let me know. And as I always end these, I want everybody to remember that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Thank you, Karen.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Lots of fun.